So to delete the note, what we want the trash button to actually do is delete the current note, whatever the current note is, because the current note's already stored in state, and the current note is the one that's loaded into the form. So we don't necessarily need to pass the current note from the form all the way up to main, because main already knows which one is the current note, right? So if main had a method that just removes whichever one is the current note, that ought to do the trick. So let's make a method that does that. Above render, how about remove current note? And I could do this, but we're using arrow functions now. Using property assignment, a recent feature. So in state, what we're going to be updating is the array of notes, right? So we know we can't screw around with that directly, so we need to make a copy of it. So we'll say const notes is a copy of this.state.notes, and that's the array we'll actually mess with. And then at the end, we'll want to say this.setState. Notes to replace the old version with the new. So it's what to do in between. That's the question. So you said compare it to the current note. Did you use find index, or did you do it a different way? Yeah, find index. Seems legit. So the same sort of thing, except we're not comparing it to a note that's being passed in. We're comparing it to this.state.current note, right? So I'll call this one note this time because we're comparing it to current note. So something like this. That look right? This what you did, Sam? So loop over the notes, pass in each one, compare its ID to this.state.currentNote.id. When you find it, that's the one. So if that's even there, remove it. So how do we remove it from the array? What did you do to remove it from the array? Splice, right. We did that the other day. So I suppose we could say if I is, what's it going to be if it doesn't find it? -1. So if it's greater than -1, notes.splice. First argument to splice is the index you start at, so that's I. Then the second one is how many items to delete. That's 1. And that ought to do it. And if it never found the thing, I don't suppose you need to update state, do you? So we can put that inside the if too. Is there anything else you need to do? Set the current node back to blank, right? So I suppose we could do that either way. So this dot reset current node will do that. Or when you set state, you could also, in addition to passing in notes, you could set current note to this dot blank note. But we have a function that does that already, a method that does that. So how's that look? We make a copy of the notes from state, the array. We find the index of the note in the array that has the same ID as the one in the form. If that was found, then we remove that from the array and we update the array in state, and we blank out the form again. Make sense? We have to keep both current note and the notes array up to date. Let's see what we got. Now, I haven't hooked it up with a button yet, but we can still test that this much works. So let's throw some in here. Let's say we want to delete this one, JKH. So my React Dev tools, which are freaking out at the moment, looks like. What's going on here? Come on, React. Oh, come on. Fine, we're going to have to start all over. That's more. Okay, we'll delete the one that starts XZ. All right, so my React Dev Tools, let's find main. There it is. So now $R is main. So in console, I could say $R dot remove current note. And it's gone. Removed it from the array and it cleared out the form. So that's everything we wanted it to do. Great. So now we just need to make the button do that. So down in note form. But this method's all the way up in main. Everybody on 3, how do we get the method from up in main down to the form? Starts with the P. 1, 2, 3. That's right. That's how I have to do the class participation. All right. Here's note form. We're passing it current note and save note. We'll also pass it current note. This dot remove current note. Down to note form. We're being passed in all our props here, right? And we're using destructuring assignment to make local variables out of all of them. So we have remove current note now. Here's the trash button. Button type equals button. On click, camel cased. Remove current note. What just happened? I was trying to hit Command S and I hit Command W. But it did work. Okay. Let's try this again. Let's do this one. Deleted. It worked. Not bad. That button is really, really tiny. Let's see if we can make that a little less tiny. It kind of looks ridiculous and hard to hit. Let's see, form.css. Probably something already in here. Note form button i.fa. Aha, that's the problem. So it's targeting Font Awesome icons, but this one wasn't FA, was it? It was FAR, I believe, because Font Awesome 5 uses different classes. Class name FAR, right? So what I could do here is make this target more than one thing. You can have multiple selectors separated by commas. So I'll say note form button i.far as well. We could say FAS too, because that's also a Font Awesome 5 thing. FAR is the one that's actually going to change the one we're looking at. It still looks really small. So we're targeting this I element. Of course, it's ultimately going to be an SVG, but the way Font Awesome 5 works, it should just do it. But it doesn't look like it's making it any bigger. So the I is basically commented out here. But that ought to target that okay. So what can we do to make that bigger? Making the button bigger probably doesn't do anything, does it? Let's see, font size. Well, it's probably not going to do it if I do it here. Anyway, that would work. We can just target the button instead of targeting the icon. Although, no, that'll do it. Let's just target the button. There you go. Cool. I wonder if we had targeted just the eye without any classes on it. What would that do? Yeah, it's tiny again. So we'll do that. We could add note form button :hover. Change the color a little. Go from a light gray to black, or even to red or something like that. What if we just change it to black? How's that look? To me, that makes it a little more obvious you're about to do something. So. Very good. Delete notes. Questions about how all that worked?